Hello and welcome into this final Wednesday edition of Cronkite Sports Now. I'm your host, Sean Rice. The NFL draft is almost upon us. This year, due to the coronavirus pandemic, the NFL is holding the draft virtually for the first time ever. Although this will be different, it will not prevent some former ASU football stars from hearing their name called. And with that, I'm joined by Cronkite News reporter Rob Werner. Rob, let's take a look at some ASU prospects that had the opportunity to get drafted through the first 3 days of the draft.
So Rob, first, tell me about Brandon Aiyuk. What is his draft outlook looking like?
Yeah, Sean. With Brandon Aiyuk, it's looking like you can mainly project end of the first round to the beginning of the second round. Somewhere in that range is where Aiyuk is expected to go. A taller wide receiver, 6'2". He had a very good senior season for ASU. Only played for ASU for 2 years after coming from Sierra Junior College, but two very productive seasons. This past year, he was first team all-conference for the Sun Devils and really had a great year, leading the team in touchdowns, receptions, and a guy that you think is going to match up well at the next level as sort of a position receiver.
Tell me a little bit about Eno Benjamin, ASU's a running back for the last few seasons.
I mean, one of the best running backs to come out of ASU's program in its entirety. I mean, Eno Benjamin, 2 years as the starting running back, and each year he had over 1,000 yards rushing. His sophomore year, he actually put up the most single-season rushing yards in program history. He had the most carries that year in program history. Really impressive career, what he did in just 2 years. You remember his first year, he didn't get many touches. He was behind Demario Richard and Kalen Ballage, but the next two, he really took hold of that offense. And this past year, with ASU's offensive line being much younger, having two true freshmen starters on that offensive line, he continued his ways, improved as a pass catcher, and had another 1,000-yard rushing season. I expect him to be sort of a middle round to later round running back. There's a great class with DeAndre Swift, Jonathan Taylor, J.K. Dobbins, tons of guys. So I think that might affect things for him, but I do expect him to be a later round guy.
So I understand Aiyuk and Benjamin are the main guys that we're going to look for from ASU football. But Rob, are there any other guys that maybe will be a free agent, acquisition for some teams, or maybe be drafted in the later rounds?
I think there are a couple that stick out to you. Cole Cabral, a veteran offensive lineman, he played with ASU all 4 years, maybe had his stock highest after his junior year, came back, played a little bit of left tackle, mostly center last year. I think he's a later round pick to an undrafted free agent. And then punter Michael Turk. He had the best year a single punter's had in a long time for ASU. He's got lineage that's been in the NFL with his brother and his uncle in the NFL and having played in the NFL. I do expect Turk to make a team and have an opportunity to be some team's punter. There's always a need for punters in the NFL, and I expect him to get an opportunity. And then the last guy I think we should keep an eye on is Kobe Williams, an undersized cornerback. He was ASU's defensive MVP this year that they give out internally to their team. And he's a smaller stature guy. He's only about 5'9", 5'10", but he's a very good ball corner, very good at pressing at the line. And he had a very good ASU career. I expect him to, try to stick with a team. And he's the kind of guy in today's game where there's so much passing, you need nickel corners and guys just to come in passing situations. I expect him to get some opportunity.
The virtual NFL draft begins tomorrow at 5 p.m. Pacific time. Rob, thanks so much for joining me. The changes to the sports landscape in light of the coronavirus pandemic have been well documented, including the NFL community. I recently had a chance to talk to some of those affected most leading up to the draft. The coronavirus pandemic has forced the NFL landscape to evolve. The move to virtual interactions to prepare for this year's NFL draft is being felt by the players, trainers, and front office personnel.
Definitely a new reality. It's been a very strange adjustment period. During this time, you're usually going to be going out to teams for visits, and then they'll be coming out to you for workouts and whatnot. So now it's kind of just been FaceTime interviews, Zoom meetings, and whatnot.
For us, everything's changed. Our PT world has changed. Where we're having a significant amount less clients. We're still open. We're still deemed by the state as a necessary, essential service.
It's given us less of a chance to overthink it, to go out and to be on the road and to question yourself just because the guy ran a faster 3-cone and because he jumped higher. I mean, again, I've been able to watch more tape probably than any year in my time as the general manager.
Due to COVID-19, most gyms are closed, forcing people to use small weights or body weight exercise to stay in shape. However, Colby Parkinson's workouts have been quite the opposite.
I've actually been able to work out harder, which has been nice. So usually during this time, like I said, we'd be doing workouts and stuff, and you want to be in, peak performance. You don't want to be sore for a team that's coming out to work you out. But now that that can't happen, I'm able to kind of push it a little more in the weight room.
Just like the virtual meetings between players and teams, trainers are engaging technology as a resource to better their athletes.
We actually can do telehealth, and we have been doing that with some clients, especially even our professional athletes, because that's our unique setting in some aspects where we've done, hey, jump on just like this, and we do some work Zoom, or we've sent them a workout program. You have any questions on it? Can I talk to you through maybe some self-mobilization techniques to get you prepared for that?
With social distancing guidelines in place that limit team activities for the foreseeable future, those involved have made it clear they will be ready to play when the time is right.
I do know, we'll have this NFL draft, which, we can do, and we can do it virtually and have no issues, in my opinion. Beyond that, it's really something that I can't answer because I'm not really sure what's going to take place and really where we're going to be at as a country at that point in time. But hopefully it moves along quick and we're able to get back to playing soon.
I'm just excited to play football again. It's been, this whole process is super weird. You got the combine, then you go and you talk to 100 people in one day, and then you're working out, and then a whole lot of not football. And I'm excited to get back to doing what I do best, and excited to show the team that drafts me what I got and that I can impact the team early on.
Reporting in Phoenix, Sean Rice, Cronkite News. The Arizona Cardinals are slated to draft 8th overall in the first round, while Parkinson is projected to be a middle round draft pick with hopes of hearing his name called most likely on Friday or Saturday. For today's Arizona Sports Rewind story, I sat down with Cronkite News reporter Ryan Latica. Ryan wrote a digital story about today being the 16th year anniversary of the death of former ASU and Cardinals great Pat Tillman. Have a listen.
Ryan, I understand Pat's run was supposed to be run this last Saturday, but it was canceled due to COVID-19. But with a lot of people participating virtually, it still happened. And I understand you learned a little bit about how Pat's run was started. So how did it begin?
Yeah, Sean. So it was essentially Doug Tamero, who is the assistant athletic director here at Arizona State. He joined up with Perry Ettinger, who was Pat's athletic trainer while Pat was playing football here at Arizona State, as well as his brother-in-law, Alex Garwood. And then, so after the news broke that Pat was killed by friendly fire in Afghanistan in 2004, there was obviously a period of heavy mourning and shock and disbelief about what had happened, because Pat had just become such an iconic figure in the Arizona community. And then kind of after all that had settled, Doug and Alex and Perry all got together, and they knew that they wanted to do something to honor Pat. They knew they didn't want to do a tennis tournament, golf tournament. They didn't really think that would be a good way to honor Pat. But Perry, who was an avid runner already, he had been running, all kinds of different races. He kind of took the lead on getting a race started. And so they were just, putting ideas up against the wall, seeing what sticks. Eventually, they came up with the idea of finishing on the 42-yard line. And it just kind of started growing and growing from there. And obviously at the time there was no social media. They just kind of had to rely on word of mouth and posting posters around just to kind of get the word out about it. But yeah, it's just been growing and growing ever since to keep honoring Pat on this Saturday closest to April 22nd every year.
Right. So what did those closest to Pat say about him as a person?
Yeah, Pat was just all around just a good guy. He wasn't showboaty. He wasn't even during his time as a football player, both in college and in the NFL with the Cardinals. He wasn't. He was just a good guy. He always wanted to check in with everybody else, see how the other guy was doing. He was all about the team. He was all about the other guy. Was what Jeremy Stott said in my interview with him. Jeremy was one of Pat's former teammates at Arizona State. And yeah, he was just all around a good guy. He didn't ever want to put himself above anybody else. He always wanted to make sure that everybody else was doing all right. And then, that's just kind of the epitome of Pat Tillman as a person.
What would you say that Pat Tillman's legacy is today?
As of today, Pat was, excuse me. Pat, I mean, he was just all around that good guy. When he first joined the military, he didn't want any fanfare about it. He didn't want to make it about him. He had some emotional turmoil about it after 9/11 happened, and he turned down that contract extension with the Cardinals in order to go serve his country. And I think that's just the legacy that he left behind, was always wanting to, make sure he was helping out. And that's just what people honor every year. Earlier this year during Super Bowl, between the 49ers and the Chiefs, I'm sure that most people will remember, they ran a commercial that had a young boy running all across the country, interacting with NFL greats of the past and present. And, they made sure to include him in that commercial, with that young boy stopping at State Farm Stadium at the Pat Tillman statue in order to pay his respects for a couple moments before moving on to Hard Rock Stadium in Miami. And they include him, within the all-time greats of the NFL for that reason. Sure, he didn't have he didn't have one of the greatest NFL careers of all time, but he was just that all-around good guy who put others before himself.
You can read Ryan's story on Twitter @SportsCronkite, or find it online at our website at cronkitenews.azpbs.org. The Arizona State ice hockey program stood on the verge of earning its second NCAA tournament berth in 4 years at the Division I level. But then COVID-19 pressed pause on college sports. So where does the program stand now? Josh Schaefer has more on the state of Sun Devil hockey.
The coronavirus brought about a lack of a postseason and a lack of closure for Arizona State hockey. But despite the abrupt cancellation of their season, the Sun Devils have found positives in a year that featured a program record 22 wins.
I think that we could just be very proud of the body of work that we put in and improved on a win total of 21 the previous season. Back-to-back 21 seasons are very tough to play in Division I college hockey. For us to do it in our third and fourth full season, I think is a really tremendous accomplishment.
I came to ASU to help build something, and I hadn't felt like I had accomplished as much as I could on an individual level for this program. I wanted to win a national championship so bad. Unfortunately, we didn't even get a chance at that, along with the rest of college hockey in the world.
But despite high hopes entering the 2019-2020 season, ASU struggled early and desperately needed a quick turnaround.
We started 1-3. And nobody expected that. We felt really good about going that home opener, Mercyhurst, and we lost. And then we went to Mankato and lost 2 there. So we started 1-3, and we went to Air Force, and essentially those were must wins. We had to win those 2 games. We did. And then we came home against the top 10 team in Quinnipiac and swept them. So winning those 4 straight to go from 1-3 to 5-3, it really set the course for our season.
After the slow start, ASU lost just 1 of its next 11 games. The Devils then proceeded to go 12-4 after the first of the year, led by co-captain Brinson Pashnik.
He scores! It's a hat trick for Brinson Pashnik!
And the rest of the Devils' senior class.
When my class was coming in, we knew it will be an uphill battle, especially the first couple of years. But looking back, when I got here freshman year to where it is now, I can look myself in the mirror and truly be happy where me and my class feel like we're leaving a program. I think we've helped build a culture that we really wanted here.
And although Pashnik leaves ASU without a national championship, he leaves with something else, a contract to play professional hockey for the San Jose Sharks.
They treated me with nothing but the utmost respect. So when me and my wife and my family made the decision to go to San Jose, it was one of the most exciting days of our lives. And so now it's just getting my name on that paper in the very near future.
Pashnik also leaves the Sun Devil hockey program in a better state than it was 4 years ago, when it was just a startup program. Now it's in the national spotlight.
That is point number 100 in his Sun Devil career.
I would imagine that we've gained a lot of respect from a lot of people, and certainly we have more to go. We've, I think, exceeded pretty much every outsider's expectation for our program. We've qualified for 2 NCAA tournaments in our first 4 years as an independent with no arena. I think that if I'm looking on the outside, not really being on the inside like I am, I'm probably thinking to myself, they're barely scratching the surface.
When college sports resume next fall, the Sun Devils expect to take the ice with 22 returning players and the nation's 5th best recruiting class. In Tempe, Josh Schaefer, Cronkite News.
Greg Powers hinted that Brinson Pasnick might not be the only Sun Devil from this year's senior class to sign a pro contract, but those details won't be released until a later date. That'll do it for today's edition of Cronkite Sports Now. Special thanks to our Wednesday producer, DeJour Sylvester, for all of his hard work all semester long, keeping you informed on the latest sports news across the valley. Stay safe and healthy, everyone.